Travel and tourism is one of the world's leading industries that affect economies worldwide. To dive deep into the state of travel in our industry, I present to you some of the top leaders in national and international travel. Please allow me to introduce Tori Emerson Barnes, Executive Vice President of Public Affairs and Policy for the U.S. Travel Association. Tori is highly regarded on Capitol Hill and across the industry for her expertise in managing domestic, international issues. She is credited for securing pandemic-related federal relief efforts utilized by hundreds of travel businesses and destinations to keep them afloat and alive during this pandemic, including our very own Visit San Antonio. And thank you to Tori and the U.S. Travel Association for bringing IPW to San Antonio in 2023. Annette Gregg, Chief Revenue Officer for Meeting Professionals International. Annette has an extensive background in the meetings and hospitality industry. She has served on executive level positions in corporations and associations and not-for-profits. And Annette just booked MPI's large WEC conference for the first time in San Antonio for 2026. Don Welsh, President and CEO of Destinations International. Don is a seasoned tourism executive with more than 35 years of experience in the tourism industry. He has served in leadership positions at destinations across the country, including Indianapolis, Seattle, and Chicago. And Don is one of the reasons why I'm here actually today, because he brought me back into the DMO world in Chicago in 2015. Thank you all for being here. Take a seat. So we should have done this last week as dress rehearsal in Vegas at IMEX, huh? Okay, so the first question, I'm gonna ask a few questions. The first one is for all of you, okay? We are sitting in a room full of small business professionals. The past few years have been life-changing. What trends are you each seeing or advice do you have for the hoteliers, restaurateurs, entertainment providers, and hospitality workers in this room? Let's start with Tori.
Sure, thank you, and I'm so excited to be here today. It's actually my first time in San Antonio, and hospitality has been lovely, so thank you.
What do you think?
It's fabulous. I can't wait to come back before IPW. But I think what's really important is how critical small businesses are and what support they provide to communities from an economic standpoint. And we know that travel and tourism businesses are, by and large, small businesses. But what I think our elected officials didn't necessarily know or fully understand until the pandemic was the impact of international bound travel and meetings on small businesses in communities like San Antonio and elsewhere. So I think the really important thing is to engage your elected officials at all levels. You obviously have a very engaged local elected official community here, but I think making sure that they always are understanding the small business relation to the broader travel industry.
Excellent. How about you, Annette?
Well, thanks again for having me back. I was here just a year ago for my first time. So like Tori's experiencing, it's just such a warm and hospitable destination. So we're proud to bring our conference here in 2026. So when I think about small business, which is all of you, really you are the heart of a destination. And what we're seeing from the meeting professional side of things now in group business is that they're getting their meetings back, but they're getting back at right now about 61 to 84% of the attendance that they had pre-pandemic. So we need to give these meeting organizers reasons to get their attendees to attend their conferences again. And all of you, this authenticity, this real and true, which is such a great ad campaign, really that is what the new traveler, the new meeting attendee is looking for. We also know that the demographic of Gen Y and millennials, there's 75 million of them in the workplace now. And we know with that younger generation, they are looking for authenticity, and they're looking for actually the brand to walk its talk. So any of you that have small business, that's what they want. They want to see that their attendance is having an impact on you and not necessarily the big brands. They want it for the small businesses. So you're in really the good place to really capitalize on a destination on this new traveler.
Don?
Well, first of all, congratulations to you and the team and everybody in this audience for some pretty incredible accomplishments during the recovery of the pandemic. I had the good fortune to work with Marc in Chicago, and when I found out he was considering this opportunity in San Antonio, I'm a huge fan of this community and what it's accomplished over the years, and I think you've got such a great brand champion here. It's not by coincidence. I'm seeing some organizations and brands and companies that are coming now to San Antonio that he worked closely with in Chicago, some more great work. And again, seeing everything from the groups to the activity with IPW next year, I think it's going to be an incredible opportunity. I love the fact you've asked for community engagement. And again, everybody's looking at it, and I'm sure that Tori and Annette will agree with me. Everyone talks about authenticity. Everybody wants real. They want authentic. And I can't imagine what these people are in for, Marc, when they come to San Antonio from around the world. It's just one of the events you have. So congratulations to all of you, and I think you just need to continue to do what you do. Stay true to the brand that you are, and I think continued great things will happen. And I'm very excited to be with you today and my colleagues as well. So great job.
I mean, I can't say it enough. IPW is going to be a game changer for San Antonio. So, Don, let's stay with you. Recent state laws in our state of Texas, Florida, Georgia, among others, are greatly affecting tourism and meetings and conventions. You at DI and destination marketing organizations across the U.S. are dealing with issues that really we didn't deal with 10 or so years ago. Can you tell me how DI is working with our entire industry to assist cities like San Antonio not be canceled by associations, corporate leaders, and meeting professionals?
Great question. First of all, I'm working with a lot of our colleagues here and more that aren't on the stage. And last week we were together in Las Vegas during IMEX, and we had a pretty in-depth, pretty intense conversation about what's taking place. And I think I want to tell you right now that one of the people at the forefront in helping identify and address this issue of boycotting and weaponization of travel is Marc. And you may know that Marc serves on the American Society of Association Executive Boards. He's actually been chosen by Michelle Mason, their CEO, to serve as the liaison between the association board, which is a very challenging opportunity at best, and then also the community. And he's walking that tightrope. And I will tell you, it's in the last 30 days, I'm really impressed, and I mean that sincerely. I'm really impressed with what's transpired. For some of you who want to go back, and I won't spend a lot of time on it because it's a bit painful, this whole idea of boycotting and weaponization started in 2016. It started in North Carolina, you may recall, with the bathroom bill. That was affectionately known as the bathroom bill. And unfortunately, after about $6 billion of loss to the community, it was, believe it or not, the NCAA that said, by the way, unless you resolve this issue, no more basketball in North Carolina. So that got the attention of all things of lawmakers to begin looking at this. It's been quite dormant up until now. And just when we thought we were dealing with the recovery of the pandemic, which was, we'll tell you, a big enough challenge, the whole issue of boycotting has come up. And it really has been prompted by the results and the overturn of Roe v. Wade. And it really is dealing with human rights issues right now, restrictive abortion laws, whatever it may be, we're dealing with it. So it is complex, but one of the things we're all doing right now, between our partners at MPI and U.S. Travel and others, we're all just beginning to have a lot more coordination and communication. And I'll tell you some other examples later, but it's just been a lot of discussion about how we can mitigate and sort of bring people to a little bit more of a centrist position rather than being so polar opposite. And boycotts are not the solution. Right. And we can talk further about that.
Great. Thank you, Don. We all owe Don a debt of gratitude as well. Michelle Mason with American Society of Association Executives invited Don and Al Hutchinson, who is the president and CEO of Visit Baltimore, to speak to at our board meeting in August of this year. And they couldn't have done a better job of talking about how we as cities need to be unified together to stop these boycotts. So Tori, Dealing with public affairs and policy of U.S. travel, what are the top concerns and issues Congress is addressing or plans to address within domestic and international travel? And also something that we've talked about is the Chinese traveler and the Chinese visas. Unfortunately, we probably will not see the much needed Chinese traveler at IPW 2023 because of the current issues. So if you can give us any insight onto that as well.
Sure. So, as you all know very well, domestic leisure obviously is doing very well, but we still have a long way to go on international and inbound and business travel. And so from a policy standpoint, we really look at how we can impact that in a positive way and reduce barriers. So we worked very much on reopening the international borders that opened last November, eliminating the pre-departure testing requirement to come into the U.S. And so now what we're seeing is we have visa wait times for non-visa waiver program countries. That's in 2019, about 43% of folks that came to the U.S. were coming from countries where they required a visa. And the wait times now on average are over 400 days to get a visa. So you could say, oh, I want to go to the United States. You can't even book an airline ticket within the window of when you could get an appointment for a consulate across the world. So it really is a big challenge. The three really big markets that impact us, and in Texas included, are Brazil, Mexico, and India. So we're working to try to, especially in those three countries, get the wait times down. That will clear out about 70% of the backlog that we're seeing. And then we are calling upon the administration to reinstate an Obama-era requirement that would have visas processed within 21 days for 80% of the. That would be really, really meaningful. Likewise, we want to eliminate the vaccination requirement to come into the U.S., right? Canada just did that. A lot of countries in Europe have done that. U.S. still requires testing to come into the country. If you don't have a vaccination, that's another piece. And then restarting business travel through incentives. So we really want to see there's currently a tax deduction you can get for meals for business expenses. We like to couple that with an entertainment expense deduction to enable some incentives, as we know that some of the corporate decision makers are being a little bit slower to get travel back from a business standpoint. So those are a couple of things that we're working on. As it relates to China, you may have seen that President Xi just gave his once every 5-year speech where he absolutely reinforced the COVID-0 policy of the Chinese people. So unfortunately, we think that those really, really onerous restrictions to come in or out of China will continue to be something that we face for the foreseeable future.
Okay, Annette, during the pandemic, associations transitioned to having virtual conferences and conventions. However, some groups have mostly returned to in-person or hybrid events and meetings. What are the top 3 consideration meeting planners look for in a destination as we emerge from the pandemic? And why did you choose San Antonio for 2026?
Oh, such a fun question. Well, I really love, some of your slides is really going to reinforce what we're finding in our data from MPI and these other sources. But what the meeting professional is dealing with now is a lot of last minute decisions. So that she might be able to bring her meetings back, but she's hearing about it with much less lead time. So what he or she is going to be looking for is a destination that is flexible with her needs, because like you just saw, how many in the year, for the year pieces of major business did you book? I mean, there's a great opportunity for the city and destination that is receptive, that is responsive, and that is flexible to grab those pieces of business. These planners are so stressed out right now that they want to go to a destination that is easy to do business with. So kudos to you and all of you for landing that short-term business, because I bet he had some other opportunities and other options. But you'd be astounded to hear stories about destinations and hotels not getting back to people, because I get it, we are all trying to staff back up. So we've got to find a way to be responsive to these planners, because they need to find a home for these really lucrative pieces of business. So I'd say that is the number one thing, is a responsive and flexible destination. The other thing that meeting professionals know is that they're facing really high inflation, like all of us. So their budgets are really out of whack right now. So any transparency that you can offer, try to get away from those hidden fees, those COVID, we all did that, right? Pandemic fees and everything, trying to get back to our margins. But just be upfront about pricing as much as you can, because she doesn't have time to go back and forth. So really, try to put your best foot forward, your best offer forward. And I guess the third thing that comes to mind is back to my statement earlier about we're trying to get people to come out of their home offices. And what's happening with all of us trying to get people back in the workforce to come into an office, it's the same thing about getting them to attend a conference. Mm-hmm. They're like, we just got a little lazy, and I get it. I mean, I like my pajamas. But we need people to get out of their homes and go to the annual meetings that our members are planning. So any of these, which is why your destination is so perfectly suited, they need to be wowed. We need to go to that end user attendee and say, get out of your home and get to San Antonio, or you are missing out. You do not want to miss out. You want to go to that annual meeting. So any of those marketing tools, it sounds like obviously you're well equipped with your toolkits, but any of those, that sizzle, that's going to help that meeting planner get her attendance back to where it needs to be. And that's absolutely why we chose San Antonio for our, we have about 3,000 people, much smaller than Tori's conference, but these are meeting professionals, and they get a little jaded. But what we also know is that our average member is 9 years younger than when I joined quite a while ago. So we are looking at that younger member, that younger generation that is in our membership. So they want to come to an authentic destination. The DEI is really important. It was part of our RFP process, is your commitment to diversity. So we really liked what San Antonio is doing around that. And they're just going to love this destination for all the variety and authenticity it has to offer.
Thank you, Annette. Don, I don't want to put you in a bad spot, but you're the only person that has not booked a major event.
I got to bring you one.
I mean, he has an annual convention for
we got
about
plenty of room
3,000,
in
4,000
24,
people. So starting with you, Don, this is a good question. So we, again, are new to membership. We just launched membership in January of 2022. So why are DMOs, destination marketing organizations like Visit San Antonio, important to cities like our own? And how do you interact, and you and your team interact with DMOs, and what do you do at DI?
Right. Well, I may be a bit jaded in my response since we now represent 650 destinations around the world. But, it's great to me. We had a chance to spend time with Jenna before she got up and spoke today. And it really is nice to see that tourism is part of economic development. And I think those of you sitting in the room, whether you're running big businesses or small businesses, we believe strongly that the numbers of destinations, they can be somewhat staggering. The numbers you threw out here, Mark, 229 million in taxes. We all sort of hang our head on that. We talk about, heads and beds and restaurants and those kind of things. But I think one of the things we realized when we began pivoting away just from the numbers, that the brand that is represented here, and I thought your work there is fantastic. It's got to align with the true standards and values of your community. And everybody in this audience, whether you're running a business or not, I think it's important that you can relate to the brand, that brand's being true and authentic to you and in your community. So we've been big believers in brand stewardship, and I can see the work you're doing there. But I think once you go beyond jobs it creates, we all realize that it all starts with a visit. Ironically, the person who runs Irving, Texas, Mara Gast, has been very involved over the years, and she actually has a flow chart that we do. So it all starts with a visit, whether you've come for business, whether you've come for a meeting, whether you've come for leisure. Somehow, if you feel good about that community, you may think about moving to that community. You start feeling comfortable in that community, you may start thinking about businesses and developing businesses. And I see some heads nodding with that. But it really talks about the importance of that first visit and making that impression. And again, seeing the numbers and the growth here are quite staggering, but it seems like you're doing a lot of great things and a lot of great work here. But we truly believe that it is the community shared value, as well as conjunction of performance and metrics and taxes. But it's got to be part and parcel, and that's, I think, the biggest shift that you've seen.
How about you, Tori?
Well, I think that when you look, especially, again, I go back to sort of the pandemic and understanding what a destination does for the community and the events and the international visitors that are brought to a community partnership with your members and the small businesses that are here in the room today, the ability to bring a collective voice and an inspiration and authenticity on the message. It really does mean a lot, and it is important. And I think, the way we work with destinations, we, U.S. Travel, we represent the whole of the travel industry. That is, all of the different segments. That's hotel, that's airline, that's cruise, that's destinations, that's state tourism directors. And when you think about the whole, you really can't have, a hotel could benefit, an airline might benefit, but without that destination really bringing everything together, it's all going to be lifted in an even greater way. And so for us, it's really important. And I think, again, as we saw with the pandemic, when we were fighting for the PPP, it was, trying to have our elected officials understand, like, without these destinations, without Visit San Antonio, your community is going to lose a lot.
Yes.
And so it really underscores the importance that destinations bring to communities from an economic standpoint, from a diversity standpoint, and from a societal perspective.
Absolutely. And I think we have to continue being so grateful for the leadership of Mayor Nirenberg, Eric Walsh, our two board members, Councilwoman Villagran and Rocha Garcia, but the other 8 council members as well that continue to support our industry. And Ed, what about you for a DMO perspective?
Well, when I think about it from the group buyer perspective, we have another stat that I heard recently from a company called Freeman, which is in our space. 29% of our industry has turned over since COVID and since the pandemic. So we have a lot of new meeting professionals that are coming to a destination and they don't know how to find everything. So the DMO is critical. It's critical as the one-stop shop. We've got to start there because the DMO is the advocate for the planner and also for all of you. So they can kind of be that trusted advisor in the middle that's going to take what the planner needs and all of her diverse needs and conflicting needs, and then be the diplomat to the destination and say, hey, we love all of our members, but this one might be a better fit for you. And it's just going to help these newer folks in our industry. It saves them so much more time than trying to piecemeal it. And the other thing that comes to mind is what's the new value proposition again, the same survey from Freeman, but listen to some of these statistics that came out. This is the number of respondents that say that these issues are more important now than pre-pandemic. 67% say that mental wellness is more important to them and how they plan their meetings. 71% said physical wellness is now more important than pre-pandemic in how they plan their meetings. 72% said family is more important in their meeting planning and what they're offering their attendees than pre-pandemic. And then 37% said travel and those travel wow experiences are more important. So if that is what's driving the meeting planner, the group buyer, then she doesn't know where to find all that stuff. When she comes to a brand new destination like San Antonio, she has to rely on the DMO to say, okay, well, we got that. We got stuff for families. We got stuff for, look at this beautiful river walk. There's your physical wellness. We've got mental wellness, and we can find that Zen garden. So it really has to start with the DMO in my personal experience when I was a planner and also as an advocate for planners now.
Thank you. So I'm getting the wrap up, but I want to ask one more question because we have, again, a lot of young professionals. We have students from St. Philip's here. Woo-hoo! So let's be inspiring. They don't know that I'm going to ask them this question, so we'll start with Annette. But it's the same question for all of you. Briefly tell us about the proudest moment in your career thus far.
Wow, that's a big one, isn't it? Oh, so the proudest moment in my career. Okay, well, I'll tell you. It's kind of an anti-proud moment, but it turned into a great moment. I was laid off in my career, been working in this industry for probably 27 years now, and laid off unexpectedly. And I took about 4 months of downtime to create a women's conference specifically for fellow meeting professionals because we're a very overworked and very stressed out. It's a high stress, you know this stat, right? High stress profession. And I really felt like we could do a better job supporting each other. So that was my silver lining to my layoff story, and I ended up doing 5 women's conferences out of that in successive years.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah, thank you.
So Tori, besides booking IPW in 23, what's the proudest moment of your career?
So I'm an advocacy person, government affairs, communications, always in Washington, D.C. I worked in the auto industry for almost 15 years, which was very tangible, right? So elected officials really understand. You walk into a plant, you know, a car comes off a line, they understand that economic impact. And one of the things I loved about the travel industry when I came into it was the economic impact, actually, of the travel industry is just as great as the U.S. auto industry, yet it's not as tangible. And so it takes some time to get our elected officials up to speed on the importance in communities. So I have to say that in the COVID times and the COVID relief and all of the COVID, we had, I think, 90% of our members, billions of dollars that actually came into to the travel industry. And really it was the PPP money in that December bill of 2020 when I literally cried at the dining room table with my daughter when I read the text and saw that we were in the bill. That was the proudest moment, was that this is such an important industry and we were able to help give a lifeline.
I mean, I hope you all realize that kept companies like Visit San Antonio, Choose Chicago, DMOs across the country, business establishments across the country afloat during this pandemic. So Don, you've traveled around the world, obviously, in your career. You've been a hotelier, you've been a DMO, you were in Vegas for a long time. What's your proudest moment?
You know, when they introduce you as a mature person in the industry, it means you're old. So as Mark said, I've been blessed. I've had some jobs that I look back on, I was so grateful for the opportunity people gave me. I think the biggest one, though, you know, on the airline side and the hotel side, primarily Westin, Ritz-Carlton, and MGM, that's on the private side. And I think my most proudest moment, it's really, nobody's asked this question, is the fact when I went to work in the Convention Bureau side, DMO in Seattle. And you begin to realize when you're representing a brand, you're representing a city, you're representing the people that live in that community, it takes on a whole different responsibility. And you realize that you sort of walk a little taller and you maybe have a little bit more stress in your life. But I mean, to be given the opportunity, as Mark has right now, to work with this great city and all of you in San Antonio, I never took that for granted. And when I went from Seattle to Indianapolis to Chicago, each one of those were different circumstances, but at no time, and you feel a tremendous responsibility, and I know he does as well. And the smaller the business that's so dependent upon what you do, you sort of feel it that, you know, you never take it for granted that you've got there because, you know, somebody else is maybe suffering. So I felt a great responsibility and a great joy. I miss these kind of meetings, to be honest with you, with what I do now. I miss because, you know, you're all celebrating great work here, and you've all put a lot of heart and soul into it. You got a great few years ahead of you. But yeah, I'd say, Mark, gone in this side of the business, it's been a blessing.
Good. Well, thank you all so much for not only being here and enlightening all of us, but also each of them flew in, you know, from DC, California, respectively. So it means a lot to us. So thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks for the hospitality.
Thank you. Okay. Once again, another applause for our panelists.